So we're at the end of the year, 2024. I know, can you believe it? It's already over. So my co-host and I, my grandson, we're going to do a year-end wrap-up show with all of our highlights from the last 2 years. Couldn't think of a better way to wrap up the year, so stick with us. We'll be back in 1 minute. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But he's welcome to stay. Hope you do stay too. We'll be right back.
Real estate has created more millionaires than any other form of investing. But, how is that working out for you? Did you become a landlord and invest in rentals, expecting monthly cash flow? Only to become burned out, with all of the headaches of tenants, toilets and turnover? Are you shut out of the game by high prices and tough lending conditions? Is all of your investable capital locked up in a retirement account, and you don't know how to put it to work in real estate? Well, you've come to the right place.
All right, well, I'm back. I lost my co-host. I think my wife's milk and cookies lured him away, but that's okay. I think we'll see him before the episode's out again. But anyway, welcome. My name's Tom Forrest. Welcome to the Stress-Free Cash Flow Podcast. This is the end of year 2, episode 13, and thought no better way to wrap up our second year than go back through the archives and pull some of the great content we have. We don't do weekly podcasts. We do them, probably quarterly, a little more often than that, but generally, they're about an hour and 15 minutes long, and we've got a lot of great content in our library from a lot of great guests, and I just thought I'd take the highlights to wrap it up this year, kind of talk about what we do, and hopefully this will pique your interest, and you'll want to find out more about what we do. And so I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what note investing is. We're going to go through what we've been through since we were last on the end of October, and then talk about our sponsors, and we'll dive into the content. So anyway, I was at a networking event back in, I think it was the second weekend in December out in Vegas. One of my financial advisors runs this every year, and there are about 250 guests there in this room. And he started off by asking everybody who had reached their infinity number to raise their hand. Now, you might know that as the fire number or whatever it is, but basically, it's defined as the amount of passive income you need to make to exceed your monthly needs. In other words, you don't have to work for the income, and it's there, and you have all your needs covered. And there's only about 6 of us in the room that raised our hands, and I was surprised. And so what I was even surprised more about was that they were going to ask us to get up and ask how we did it. So anyway, I got to do my 10-second elevator pitch, and I said, this is very simply what I do. I created a portfolio of first lien residential mortgages on people's homes, and the homeowners make their mortgage payment to me. That's it in a nutshell. There's various aspects of note investing that go beyond that, but in its purest form, I'm the bank, I own the note, and I get a monthly check or ACH payment. It's about as passive as it can come, and it's also secured by real estate. So that's what we're talking about here today. So anyway, we're going to dive into this more. Let me get you caught up on the last couple of months. Last we left you was our last episode with Homero Corona was the end of October. I pitched Note Expo 2024, and that was here in Dallas. What I didn't know at the time is I was going to be named Investor of the Year again for 2024. Those who've been with me for a while know that I won it in 2022 as well. Gave up my crown in 2023 to Brett Tanner. He's a worthy adversary. He runs the KW Wealth Mastermind, so he kind of knows what he's doing. Love Brett. He's a great guy. He's got a great YouTube channel. Please listen to subscribe to Brett's YouTube channel. A lot of good information on there. But then I won the award in 2024. We'll see what happens in 2025. I've also taped an episode of Passive Income Pilots. For those of you who don't know, I just retired about 6 months ago as an airline captain. My passive income takes more care of more than what I needed for it to bring in. And so my good friend Ryan Gibson and Tate Duryea run a podcast, host a podcast geared towards pilots and side gigs, passive income, and my episode will be coming out in January, I believe. Anyway, always fun to do that. Love talking about notes, as those of you who've seen this presentation know. That's really all I love to talk about. In fact, I've also written a book about it. I finished this right after retirement. You can actually access it free. Just go to our website, noclubusa.com. Right there below the homepage fold is a way to click a link, and you can actually read an ebook copy right online. It's not anything that I'm looking to sell. You can't buy anything on my site. All I'm giving away is education. On there, you'll also see, if you go under the education tab, I'll show you that in a second. I have about an hour-long webinar updated for 2025 called It's Unleashed Cash Flow. It's an introduction to the private note business. Teach you everything I know and then some about note investing. And you can find that right there on the website. Go to the education tab, go to the on-demand webinar. We also have a lot of other things on there. I will want you to go to the free masterclass. We'll talk about that at the end of the podcast today. Do have some great sponsors. We're going to breeze through that, and then we'll go ahead and get updated with the highlights. Dallas-Fort Worth area real estate agent. Nobody's better than my son, Danny Force. Yeah, I'm biased, but he's got the numbers to back it up. I think those are old numbers. I got to get a new slide for 2025. Buy, sell, doesn't matter. Anywhere in the Metroplex. He goes to places I don't even know exist in this area. We've been here for 30 years, but nobody works harder, and he's got the pedigree to prove it. So Danny at DannyForce.com. My other son, Brian, runs Deep Blue Capital. It's a multifamily syndication. If you want to learn about how it all works, go to deepbluere.com. They're not pushing a bunch of investments. They do have a couple, but it's much more about education and being ready when the time comes to find the proper investment, just not the next investment. They also run a podcast called More Doors. You can find that on Spotify and elsewhere. You can also subscribe to it on their website. Brian also runs Homeward Property Management. In notes, we talk about having a note servicer. In the rental real estate, you need a property manager to get your time back. Nobody's better than Homeward, DFW. They're all over DFW. They're out in West Texas as well. So go ahead and check them out. You might also want to get on their mailing list, because occasionally they'll have a property that comes up for sale. And if you're looking for somebody who might buy one of your rentals, go ahead and give them a shout over there as well. Hand in hand with Homeward is ProCare Home Solutions. It's the maintenance side of Homeward. They also do projects outside of that as well. So if you need somebody for your next flip or remodeling, go ahead and give the folks at ProCareDFW.com a shout. Finally, or not finally, but next up is transaction coordination. Infinity Source is DFW's premier transaction coordination system and people. They've got over 1,000 transactions completed, serve over 150 agents. You can see the numbers. Give them a shout, find out how they can give you some of your time back and do it with professionalism. And finally, if you have a note and you want to sell it, tpfnotebuyers.com. Looks like I might have lost the bottom there. It's very faint. tpfnotebuyers.com. If you're looking to unload a note, go ahead and give them a shout. All right, so I kind of buzzed through that because I've got a lot of content today. I've got pulled a lot of clips from our past episodes. I'm going to take them in episode order. The idea is, if any of this clicks as we go on through and you want to learn more, just go to noclubusa.com. That's our main website. Go to podcasts. Go back and listen to the whole episode. That's what it's there for. That's why we do this, is to educate people on note investing, how to reach financial freedom, or whatever your goal is. And that's why I thought it would be a nice time to revisit all this as an end-of-year wrap-up. So without further ado, we're going to start with episode 1 back in the beginning. I think I'm going to precede that with a little video I did before that that first episode. But then that first episode will be Doug Faust. He's a hospital administrator from Laramie, Wyoming, who's reached financial freedom through note investing now and can retire whenever he wants. And then I'll introduce everybody as we go on through. Enjoy. We'll see you at the end. Hey, it's Tom Force from No Club USA, and today I'm in the beautiful paradise of Punta Cana on the eastern tip of the Dominican Republic.
Didn't always used to be like this. Back in the late 60s, some investors bought about 30 square miles of jungle and turned this into a paradise over time. It included Julio Iglesias and Oscar de la Renta have invested during that time. But it used to be called Drunken Point, and they turned it, they named it Punta Cana, which is probably a much better marketing move. But the Cana refers to that palm tree behind me. As you can see, I think that that base there can be a parallel for our investments. Looks like you can push that thing over. The water continually erodes at the base of that tree, but those roots have gone deep and wide, and they're probably down there a long way. And so you can't knock that tree over, even though inflation, as we would call it, is wearing away at the investment. I think there's a pretty cool parallel there. So anyway, I think we could say that the original investors here, their ROI was, we'll call it pretty good. Don't need to get a calculator out. But how's your ROI going these days? Scared money, sitting on the sidelines, losing to inflation, stock market afraid to open up the 401k statement, rental real estate has its ups and downs. The pro forma doesn't always match the cash going in. I've got an Airbnb as well, and last time I was on vacation, my guest drove me crazy, ruined a couple of days of my vacation. If you have an Airbnb business, you know what I'm talking about. What I'm not worried about is the cash flow from my notes. I've got a servicer taking care of those. I don't get phone calls about broken toilets, tenants, or any of those other headaches. And so I can relax and enjoy the fruits of my labor and have that cash flow coming in, and I'm not having to put out fires. So anyway, I'll make it brief. I'm gonna let you go. As you can see, as my unpaid actors walk behind me, you can see how deep those roots go. Let's work on getting your roots deep and start looking at note investing. Go to my website. We're gonna launch a podcast in January and hope to have you guys partake in that. Or you can go to my website, we can have a consultation or just ask me a question. I love talking about it. Most people don't know about Punta Cana. Most people don't know about note investings, but they're gonna fall in love with both. So come see noteclubusa.com and come to Punta Cana. You'll be happy you did both.
But I'd never heard of this. When I got a mortgage on my house, I went to, local bank, and that's how I got my mortgage. But I just didn't really know about this, and certainly didn't know you could go buy them. And right. So when I tripped across it there, and then I heard Eddie Speed's name through that, and it took me a couple of years before I really actually bought a note. But that's kind of how I first discovered it. And I got onto a couple platforms online to try to buy notes, and I just really didn't understand.
Your first note.
My first one was $42,000.
Okay.
That's where I felt I needed to be, and I since have graduated to more expensive notes. I like more larger notes, I should say, just because the service fees don't take as much of the profit. But overall, my first few notes were in that $40,000 to $50,000 range.
Okay, that's cool. What's your largest note now?
My largest note was $235,000.
Wow.
So,
okay.
And that's down your neck of the woods and down in Houston.
Okay, cool. Do you have any notes in Wyoming, or are they all around the country?
Yeah, they're none in Wyoming. They're mostly in Texas, Alabama. I've got one in Indiana, Virginia. I think are the states that I'm in.
But what went through your mind with, you live in a risk management environment. So what was your analysis with the notes? What you put all this money in, what was the worst that could happen?
Yeah. So I using kind of due diligence checklists I got through Note School. I knew what to look for. And quite frankly, when you buy off Notes Direct, a lot of that is spoon fed to you as well. Those files are real clean. I still have to read through them and make sure you feel like that's the right asset for you to purchase. But that's what I did. I did my due diligence through there, made the purchase, and really haven't had. I've had a few issues, but pretty minor in the big scheme of things. And all 9 of my notes are performing at this point.
9 notes. That's cool. So what is that cash flow for you a month?
Well, sometimes it's roughly $7,000 a month. Is what it's supposed to be. Sometimes it's 6,000, sometimes it's 8,000.
Sure.
Somebody might miss a payment by 15 days and it gets put into the next month. So yeah, but overall it's roughly 7,000.
So you've got 9 notes. You're a busy CEO. You've got 4 kids. When do you find the time to manage all these notes? How much time does that take?
Well, that's the beauty of notes. If you buy them correctly,
Mm-hmm.
Once you buy them, I probably should have showed you my fancy spreadsheet. That's my spreadsheet on the notes that I own.
So what does life look like in a note fueled world where you don't have to work anymore? Is that your goal? Kind of tell me what the end game is here. What's your why with notes, and how does that look?
Well, I think I originally got into notes just to find a better place to put my money versus bonds. The bond market was killing me. So originally I was thinking, well, this will just be a good investment opportunity with really no signs and sights of retirement. But then I started thinking, well, what if I could just, have $100,000 a year coming in off of notes? Then I would basically be free to not work at any point. And that's what I'm driving for. So if I can do that, which I'll probably have to buy this note that I talked about, and then one more, and I should be at that level. So I could walk away from work if I chose to.
Any thoughts on notes versus the other kind of investments you could leave behind for your family? How does that kind of play in, going forward?
Well, I've always been an advocate for teaching my kids on all kinds of investments, and they have an allowance every week, and 10% of it goes into long-term savings, 10% is into donations. But anyway, they own Disney stock, so we looked at our Disney stock just yesterday, and we've bought it. We've owned it for 10 years, and was at 95. It went up to 200. Now it's down to like 110, and so you see those swings. And then just yesterday, with two of my kids, I talked about the note that I'm going to buy, and my 9-year-old, he got it pretty quickly. He's like, "Wow, you're going to get $1,000 a month," and he thought I would only get it for the $110,000 I'm going to pay for it over roughly 10 years. And I said, no, there's interest on this.
Right.
And I added that all up to him, and it was over 300,000 over the life of the loan. And his eyes lit up. He was pretty excited about that. So I'm really trying to use this as a teaching mechanism.
Sure.
Don't let my kids watch this. I've promised them I'm going to spend every penny I have, which isn't the truth. I'm sure there'll be plenty in the end when that day comes.
Right.
But I just want them to make it on their own and not depend on anything from their parents, just like I've never thought I would get a penny from my parents as well.
That's awesome.
Buying notes it takes a little bit of learning, but in the end, it is such a great investment for a return that for me has been very consistent, and it is very hands-free once you do the due diligence. And that's why I've been attracted to it. And you just don't see the swings. I see a check for, close to $7,000 every month. And my stocks weren't doing that. I didn't have dividends that did that. And the ups and downs and the sweat from worrying if a presidential election is going to change things, I just don't worry about that anymore.
So you decided to transition from landlord to lien lord. That's
yes.
I prefer that a little bit.
I still Tracy Z's term lean lady. I'm the lean lady.
Oh, there you go. Okay. You trademark that. I like it. Lean lady.
Anyway, this note was one that I did something called hypothecation on.
Okay.
And so hypothecation is where I use the note as collateral to borrow money from an investor. Mm-hmm. And so I hypothecated this note to an investor, and I've been making monthly payments to them that are less than the payments that I should be receiving in the future. So I still make a little money in the middle there, but that gives me the opportunity to have more money to invest in other deals to build my business. The most important thing for non-performing notes is the collateral. So you want to make sure that you have a good piece of property so that you hopefully get some money back when you do foreclose, if that's the final situation. I'm offering to write her a check if she will agree to sign over the property rights to me or my company. And then we will stop the foreclosure proceedings. So that won't be on her permanent record. And that won't cause her issues down the road potentially. And then I just end up with the property faster than I probably would have if it had gone all the way to the sheriff's sale.
Right. All right. So let's say you do get the cash for keys. Would you mind sharing kind of what your ballpark numbers are on this, what you put in, what you spent, and what you might get for the property? And then what are you going to do with it afterwards?
So I paid $32,200 for the property. Okay. And I've put in around $4,000, I believe, in legal fees right now. And so her legal balance is around $48,000. And I think that the property fixed up is worth around $80,000 to $90,000.
So if you were to foreclose and take it back and take it to auction, you'd be entitled to that 48,000. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So she gives you the keys, then you just own it and you get to go ahead and do with it what you like, correct? So you basically have the full value of the property.
Yes, sir. My friends in the area have said that this is a really good market for seller finance. So it would be another opportunity to help someone else out by offering financing to them that they might not be qualified for through the banking system right now.
On this, I could talk with you all day about this, but we do need to kind of wind it down and let people go. So tell me what your goals are going forward with your business, and how can people reach you? What are you looking to do forward? You want to partner with folks? Give us all your contact info, and we'll go ahead and wrap this episode up.
Sure. So moving forward for my business, I'm hoping to grow it enough that the income from selling notes or helping other people invest in notes is going to replace my day job. So I can be a work from home person, go on vacation. On my vision board, I have a National Geographic private jet vacation.
Tell us about that. How does that work?
So National Geographic has their own private jets. They're like 737s that they've refitted to have no more than 30 people going on vacation at a time for 2-3 week vacations. Private chef, private doctor. They have anthropologists and all these experts come to the plane and teach you about the places that you're going to be visiting, and be your tour guide. So it sounds.
I'm working for the wrong employer. If you're flying 737s, I need to look into that.
Yeah,
you need your own private pilot. Put in a good word for me when you're doing that.
Okay, well. I wonder if
that sounds great. That's a great goal. That's awesome.
But that's my big vision in the future. And my husband's like, oh, so we're gonna do these like every couple of years, and I'm like, sure. The price tag's pretty up there.
Yeah, he's gonna need to start fixing some roofs and stuff too to move that forward.
Yes.
Yeah. I met Jason. Jason's a great guy, and he supports you 100% in this, right?
He does.
What did he think when you first started out? I mean, was he on board or a little trepidation?
No, he's definitely on board with it. Yeah. With the way that the real estate prices are right now, he feels that if he can't find good deals with cash flow for his rental properties, he might as well just pay for paper cash flow through notes. So he's definitely supportive, and he's interested. He's my assistant in the in the business. And
he might see that the time he spends managing in rentals is far more than the time you spend managing your notes, especially the performing ones.
Yeah. And we actually did take his least favorite rental, and we did seller finance that property recently. So he's excited to receive those monthly payments of cash flow that are 10x what his rental cash flow would have been.
Fantastic. Good deal. So how can people reach you? What how can we help you get you with partners and investors, things like that? How can people reach out to you? What are you looking for? What can we do to help?
Well, I'm definitely looking to help busy professionals build their investment diversity through real estate notes. And so my company's name is Kennard Capital LLC, and that's the website, www.kennardcapital.com. And then my email address is also on the website, and I have a Calendly link there if you wanted to set up a one-on-one with me. But the email is Emily, EMILY, at kennardcapital.com. And I'm just looking to spread the good news about notes and how the returns can be a stable, predictable investment over time versus question mark, what's going to happen with the stock market today?
So there's custodians like ours all across the US. Some specialize in cryptocurrency. Some specialize in those public or private style stocks. Some specialize in small business. Some specialize in gold and silver. You can actually use your retirement account for anything except life insurance and what the IRS considers collectibles, because the value of a collectible is kind of, it's tougher to value. Absolutely. So I break it down to 3 different categories. And I always say there's 7 real accounts that can be self-directed. And the first one is a personal account. So if I say this, I'm saying you as an individual can set up these accounts. And that would be a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. Both of these accounts, they're tied to the individual. And a lot of you out there might already have a traditional IRA indirectly and not know it. Because this is what your 401k will turn into. This is what your 403b, your TRS, TSP, whatever it is that you have. They all turn into a traditional IRA eventually. I like these accounts only because most of the time that's where you have the majority of your capital. These accounts, though, they do have a downside, meaning they grow tax deferred. Right. I say it this way because as we do investments and they grow, you're deferring taxes until a later date. So
and the reason for that is that when the money that goes in there wasn't taxed to begin with, right?
Correct. So you put the money in there, either you get a tax deduction or the money just wasn't taxed because it was pulled out of your paycheck prior. So this is good and bad. The IRS is thinking about this as, hey, you put $10,000 in today, we're not going to tax you on that 10 grand, but it will grow to 100,000 and we'll tax you on the 100.
Right.
So they know a lot of people today, they want the, I need it now. I need that. I want something today mentality. So that's what they're leveraging with a traditional IRA.
Okay.
However, the Roth IRA is the exact opposite. And if you really look into it and you're willing to give up that tax deduction, use a Roth. The reason why is today, same example, the IRS will tax you on the 10 grand. We're going to use the Roth IRA. It works the exact same way investment wise, but instead of tax deferred, it's technically tax free. The reason why is you get taxed on the 10 grand and the growth is zero taxation, and not just for you, but even for your heirs. So if you pass away, they can inherit your Roth IRA and avoid the death tax and everything else. So what's really nice about the Roth is we can truly do these investments 100%, whatever it is you're looking at, and avoid 100% of the taxation. Sure. So the most common misconception is everyone says, well, I don't qualify for Roth. Nope, that's wrong. Everyone out there, I don't care if you're making $1 billion a year, you qualify for a Roth IRA. What you may not qualify for is to make a direct contribution. Right. So if you make more, and it's not very much, like if you're married, it's like 220 grand a year, 250 grand a year, or something like that, which in today's day and age is surprisingly not that much anymore. Right. You know, so if you make too much money to contribute to a Roth, you have to take some extra steps. All it means is you make the contribution to a traditional IRA, and then we do a Roth conversion. Now, a lot of CPAs, they'll say, hey, you don't want to do that or you can't do that. And this is because a lot of CPAs charge you per tax form you fill out. If you're going to do this movement, right, you have to fill out what we call an 8606 tax form.
Okay.
Which says, hey, I made a contribution to a traditional, but I didn't take a tax deduction because I'm converting it to a Roth. Right. Well, CPA says, I don't want to fill out that form, so you just can't do it. So I think too often than not, people are confused. They think I don't qualify for a Roth IRA.
Tell everybody about the HSA. How's that work and the triple play of tax savings on that one?
Sure. So if you're out there and you qualify for an HSA, which means you have to have a high deductible health plan in place, right? But when I say that term, don't think of the deductible dollar figure. Every either company or every insurance company can change what that high deductible means. So just you always have to ask, hey, do I have a high deductible health plan with an HSA? As long as they say yes, you can set up these HSA accounts. Now, what this means is every time you make a contribution, you get a tax deduction today. This is awesome. So that's similar to the traditional IRA, right? So you get the tax deduction for going in. But when you pull it out, as long as it's for a medical expense, it is completely tax-free. So notice, we like to call it the best of both worlds, right? Because you get the tax deduction here and you get the tax-free distribution here. But it's even better. If you use the HSA for any type of investment, all the earnings are also tax-free. Sure. Now, what's unique is every time I say this, people go, well, medical expenses, is that like the doctor visits? Absolutely, right? But it covers way more than that. And HSA can even pay for things like your glasses. It can pay for like over-the-counter medication. It can pay for anything that is considered COVID-related, which includes hand sanitizer, Kleenex, face mask, Tylenol.
Wow.
So I always like to point this out that, wow, I can work my job to make $20. I really got to make $30.
Right.
Right. IRS takes $10. I go spend the $20 on that same hand sanitizer, Kleenex, etc. Or I can use an HSA invest it, actually make a real $30 tax-free, spend the 20 and then invest the other 10. Like, it's so unique. And if we can leverage these accounts and you qualify for them, they are probably some of the most powerful retirement tools and or investment tools the IRS has ever given us.
What about saving up for education? We talk, a lot about, for retirement and, health savings and all that. What do you guys do in terms of education savings?
So you have two accounts you can actually utilize. Now, one of them is the Education Savings Account, also known as a Coverdell or ESA.
Okay.
Now, I think these accounts are really unique and powerful, but we don't set up too many of them. But pretty much what happens is you set up these accounts for a child under the age of 18. You make contributions, and all of your earnings through investments are 100% tax-free. I can't stress that enough.
So that's after tax money you're putting in, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a limit each year on that?
There is. Oh, there's not a limit to earnings, but there's a limit to how much you can contribute.
Okay.
So I can only put in $2,000 a year per child.
Okay.
All right. So if I have this money and I set it up, all right, and great, we're going to put this money in there. We can grow it tax-free. You can pull out any of your earnings at any point in time for education expenses. Every time I say this, you jump to college. Yes, it covers college, right? And it covers schooling all the way up until the age of 30.
Okay.
But we can also use for any current school expenses, things like laptops, backpacks, school uniforms. It can even cover certain after-school activities like band or something along those lines. So it's nice to know we can use these accounts.
Okay.
And they are very powerful. The problem is that $2,000 contribution limit that I mentioned.
Right.
Right? Think about you as an individual. If I put $2,000 in, I'm going to let you know it's tough to do some investments with a $2,000 limit, you know? So you have to either A, partner it with one of your other IRAs, your personal IRA or something like that to get it working right.
Mm-hmm.
Or B, we use the other account that I mentioned, which, believe it or not, is the Roth IRA.
Okay.
The minute your child is born, you can set them up a Roth IRA. Huh.
Okay.
I didn't know that, right? You just have to pay them, right? They have to have earned income. So pay them $6,000 a year or something like that and contribute the $6,000. You're good to go.
Okay.
Now, knowing this, we can pull out not only your contributions, but any of your earnings to pay for higher education expenses, tax-free. So this covers not only college, but it could also cover trade schools. So I let people know we can use either one of these accounts. I always tell people, talk to an IRA specialist first. Let them get to know you as an individual. How old are your kids? Because if they're 1 year old, the ESA might make sense. If you have a 16-year-old, maybe the Roth's going to make more sense, you know? And we can look at both of these and look at it on an annual basis.
Say the Coverdell, even though it's only got a couple of $1,000s in it, or maybe $5,000 in it, I can partner with that when I buy notes. And so that kind of tags along. And so a portion of each payment every month would come into that kid's Roth or the ESA tax-free, and that they're getting the benefit of, tagging along on the train, so to speak. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that's what my dad did. Like, if someone wanted to borrow $100,000, my dad was really famous for charging 12%, or a fancy way of 1% a month, Right. So he would lend $97,000 from his account and $3,000 from my account. When the borrower made a payment, the payment was just automatically split, saying, great, we know that $970 goes here and $30 goes here. Fantastic. And so when the note paid off, we now had $3,100 to lend and $3,500 and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So out there, just so you guys know, if you listen to my story, I did not care about this stuff when I was younger. And there's honestly, if you're out there and you have teenagers or young college students or high school students, understand it is very difficult for them to look at you as the investor. It's very difficult for them to look at you as, what you're talking about, because your mom, your dad. Right. But as they get older, it shifts. And for me, it was about 27, 28 years old. I was like, maybe that old man knows something that I don't know. Maybe he's smarter than I thought.
Imagine that.
And I discovered notes in it was about 1990, and never looked back. I mean, yes, we still do, some rehabs and some wholesales and, things like that. But it changed my whole perspective to know that you could be the bank, right? You could, you didn't have to deal with everything that went along with owning the property, whether it's landlording or whatever it is you want to do. And so it's been an amazing ride over the years, and been able to accumulate, many different notes and so on in the portfolio. And so that's been great. Great place and we're seeing more and more and more realtors that are coming into into note school for training, simply because they want to learn something else to do that has to do with more of the paper, not the property.
Right.
And then the other part of that is like you said, it's the creative financing part of that. So this is a scalable business where you can make way more than full-time income on a real part-time basis. And that's what's attractive. And, when you're dealing with the paper, you're not dealing with the property, right? You're the lender, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you are the lender, not basically. That's just what you are.
Right. Well, my toilet backs up. I don't call Wells Fargo about a land note I bought in North Carolina at a discount. And
I remember that.
$32,000 loan. I bought it for 27 and change, and it closed 6 weeks later. The guy sold it, and I made $4,500 in 6 weeks. You can't, you can do some stuff like that in real estate, but it just there's no stress with that. No realtors involved, anything like that. So those don't happen all the time, but the possibility is there. But buying at a discount is key, and
I don't want to get all corny and on all of that, but you're right. That ecosystem that we have inside, we've got some. You've had several on your podcast, and you'll have many more as you start to build that. But a lot of folks that are really engaged, we have a lot of fun, but we can be very serious about the business, and it's a give back thing, and it's cool to have. You may find a deal in Oklahoma City, or you may find a deal in Birmingham or Tampa or Okeechobee, right?
Very well could.
The first thing you're right, Tom, the first thing anybody has to do is figure out, hey, am I even interested?
Right.
And how involved would I have to be? And what does that look like? And so the first thing would be just to come to a master class. We do charge for this class, but obviously our relationship with you, we're making it available to your.
I agree. And then what kind of stuff do you cover in the master class?
Well, we take these different types of notes. We talk about buying a note, and how what do you evaluate, and what do you look at? What's an asset actually look like?
Right.
Then we lay out the numbers. We do a pretty clear job of letting people see how it works. And we talk about this idea of a partial, and you talk about would you buy it? Would you not buy it? What do we look at? What do we evaluate? And then we'll talk about non-performing. We talk about how you find these notes, where are, people say a non-performing note. Yeah, we do well dealing with people that are looking for another chapter in their life. A lot of times, Tom, they're a story like yours. You're retiring into a next business, but you're not looking for a business that wants to take up all your time or your ability to do things. While you have the ability, you just don't want to have to do it.
Right. Exactly. So, notes, for whatever you're interested in, whether it's just cash flow or actually want to make a business, then kind of pivot. You don't know what you don't know. And that's the big thing. And you want to come out. I didn't know all about the other aspects of notes. I didn't even know about notes 18 months ago. I didn't know you. I didn't know the business. But I dove right in and I took massive action. And that's what we want you to take. And we also want you to explore your why. And I think the masterclass gets into the why a lot. I know Max talks about and wants to get in the headspace as well as to why you do this. And Eddie, what's your why at this point? I mean, you're old enough and experienced enough and have enough cash flow to walk away. But what has Notes done for your why?
I think my why clearly has been charities that we've been able to be deeply involved in and very effective with, because we got introduced into a great business, and we have great resources of that. And then also my why is our family and our legacy, and not to go give them money, but teach them what we've learned. And we have done that, I think, well. We've not given our kids a bunch of money. We've given our kids a lot of creativity and a lot of resources and information to learn how to go do this well.
Right.
Now they'll get some money, but we didn't start out giving them money. We started out giving them something that's better than that.
Absolutely. And your kids are involved in the business, right?
All three of them.
Right.
Yeah. Things. We always want to know when somebody shows up at Note School, we're like, what is it that you're trying to solve? We love listening to understanding what you can solve and saying, whether we can help you or not. Right. And we've gotten really, really good at that. So show up with expectations if you come to the master class. I'll encourage you. This is why I said you can listen to a recording, but you won't get the same effect.
Exactly.
Turn your phone off. Turn all the other distractions off. We're going to spend a couple of hours with you. We're going to lean in. We're going to give you enough solid information in a couple of hours. I think you'll get a sense of whether you like this to consider moving forward. And I think in this period of time, if you're able to focus, you're going to be amazed at the journey, I think.
If you're a real estate agent out there watching this, just know that, when I first started teaching this stuff to the real estate agents and my son runs a fairly large team over in North Dallas. Nobody had ever heard of this before. I went through just the performing notes side. Nobody had heard of it. In fact, one of the gals got up and said, I'm kind of angry. And I said, why? She goes, well, I've been investing in real estate for 20 years and I never heard about this stuff. And honestly, I could relate with what she said because, I consider myself a pretty savvy investor. I've been involved in residential assisted living. I've done land development. I know you guys are really big in land, and I've done that. It was just a stroke of luck and fortitude, fortunate that I was led to you through another provider. And like I said, you don't know what you don't know. And it's changed my whole outlook on retirement. I'm ready to go now. My cash is deployed. But I've kind of found this to be my calling. And so that's why I enjoy meeting with Eddie and spreading the word. And he's been gracious enough to give us some free seats at the master class. So I'm trying to pay it forward now. And like Eddie said, just attend and be part of, what's going on. Just open up your mind and see what's out there, because we don't know what your why is. My why is pretty clear. And I've accomplished, everything I wanted to do in short order. And now my horizons have expanded. So we'd like to, provide that opportunity to you as well, whether you're a real estate agent, burnout landlord, I know so many wholesalers out there, they're all one-trick ponies. If you only got one bullet in your gun, or if your real estate agent only knows how to call expireds, and if you don't get the listing, it's all over, then you're at a disadvantage to the folks who are coming to Note School and are learning these advanced strategies that Eddie puts together. And you can join an ecosphere where we help. We talk with, we have a call 3 times a week. We talk with folks around the country. We bring deals in. You're not alone. That's kind of a corny saying out there. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. With Note School and Eddie, I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't believe in them. And they've had my back all the way. And the time and effort that I spent investing in Note School paid off for herself like in the first 2 months. And it's all gravy now. So
I guess my parting question would be this to the audience. Mm-hmm. Would you rather be a landlord or the bank?
It's pretty simple. Absolutely. For the neophyte, for folks who are new to this business, what is servicing and why is it so important in your eyes?
Well, really, the answer is kind of twofold. One of my answers is always, most of my clients do not do this for a living. Mm-hmm. Most of my clients buy notes on the side. They have a real job. They have families. They have things that take up their time. And Allied's role is to be that office that you're not staffing.
Right.
And to do the day-to-day things, because buying notes is great. Administering notes,
not so great.
I do it, but it ain't awesome.
That's right.
Their prior year history, whether it was 2 months or 12 months.
Okay.
So this year we sent everybody their 2022 history, which shows the detail of all the transactions so that the borrower at the end of every year has that in their hand. Of course, they can download it from our portal at any time, but this is one we know we've sent them. We send them their new coupon book. We send them our fee schedule, and it's a little laminated card that tells them how to reach us, where to send their insurance, what holidays we're closed, what our general fees are, things like that. That goes in there as well. So we try to do a whole communication. But one thing, it's really simple when you look at just what the IRS wants. But then let's talk about Texas has special rules. If it's a contract for deed, Texas requires you to disclose certain information annually in your year-end package. So
Okay.
our year-end package just does that automatically. And we actually give that information to every borrower.
Okay.
But those are the types of little nitpicky regulations that Texas can really bite you in the butt if you're not complying, as in they can say, well, you did it intentionally and we're going to unwind this contract and they get the property and you don't get anything. You know?
Gotcha.
So you don't want to mess that up. We also do 1099 interest statements to our customers.
Yep.
Which
That would be me. I get those.
on the face looks like a simple process, right?
Right.
Except you bought it from one of our other clients halfway through the year. So you get 6 months, they get 6 months.
Right.
Or you bought a partial. So your 1099 int is based on the partial, not the loan. So it's not as simple as we just give you the same number that was on the 1098.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have to figure all that out. And for borrowers, late charges are included in their interest number. The IRS considers that interest paid, and it is included in their total deduction. It's not the case for the 1099 ints. The 1099 ints strictly report interest. So now you've got those two issues. We also do 1099 MISCs because we do have some landlords, so we have to report their rents.
Okay.
And we have to do 1099 NECs because we pay attorneys.
There you go.
And so if you're paying your attorneys, you are also expected to do a 1099 NEC and file it with the IRS and send it to your attorney.
Light bulb moment there, folks. You're probably late by the time you've seen this, it's too late. But
well, it is.
Remember for next year.
You know, it's the NEC is a funny one because the IRS expects you to report it, but the IRS puts the burden on the attorney to get it right. It's a funny sort of statement. It's informational. It's not like they include them with their filings, but you still have to do it.
Still have to do it. Notes under your purview. Let's talk about what happens when somebody goes over 90 days and how do you guys get involved in it? You know, in our discussions, I found out that your ways are, very cost effective and very efficient, but for somebody who's brand new to notes, they may not know what happens, what those milestones are, and what a servicer does.
So we actually start performing collection outreach generally because we are so small. Our outreach tends to really hit at that 30-day delinquency mark.
Okay.
Especially since when you're talking about seller-held paper, borrowers do not pay on the due date. They generally, if they're performing, pay before their late charge hits.
There you go.
If you're due on the 1st and late on the 10th, I got the money on the 10th.
Yep.
It's just the way it is. Unless, I mean, there are exceptions. I have customers who are on ACH. They get their payment drafted every month, and great.
Right.
But most people who are writing a check, and I can't tell you how many physical checks I still get, they're paying to get it in by the grace period.
Yeah.
So we know, and a lot of them, maybe they're going to pay later in the month. Maybe they're on Social Security and they get paid on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. Doesn't matter when their grace period is. They may include the late charge. They'll just send the check when they send it. So we found that calls between the grace period and 30 days, it's probably not worth it for most of our customers. So we start our outreach pretty much at that 30-day mark. That's when we're going to start making calls.
So what would a call like that be? Just a call to say, hey, you forgot?
We call, it's generally it's more like a courtesy call initially, especially if it's a borrower who's been performing reasonably.
Right.
Give them a call and say, hey, we noticed you didn't make your March payment. It's April 10th. Did you want to make that now over the phone, or what's going on? What's your plan? And either they'll be like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. I'm so glad you called. Let me make that payment right now. Or they'll be like, oh, I just put that check in the mail.
Of course.
Wow. Okay, great.
What are the odds?
That's fantastic. But it could be a deeper issue. I lost my job. My son had to go into the hospital. My car broke down. It's going to be that kind of thing. And then we start talking to them about options. Can you do maybe a payment in a quarter for the next 4 months, or a payment in a half? Can we get you on making a half a payment every 2 weeks? What works with your pay? What works with getting you current? How can we make this work?
Right.
And so generally, if they will respond to us, we can come up with some sort of plan, get some sort of promise out of them, and then follow up on that promise if it's not capped.
Okay.
because they can set a payment over the phone for any date in the future. So if we're talking to them today and they're like, I'm not going to have another paycheck until like 21st. We're like, okay, well, we can set that up to come out on the 21st when your paycheck goes in. And they're like, oh, great. And so there we go. And now we can say to the client too, there's a payment scheduled for the 21st.
Perfect.
So that's going to come in.
Right.
So those are the kinds. It's a very open dialogue, non-accusatory sort of conversation. Just, hey, did you forget what happened? Just following up. Once we get
and
to
if I might interject here,
Yeah.
I might interject here for the new folks, keep in mind that she's doing this on our behalf. We're out living life, working our W-2 job or whatever we're doing, and so we're not taking these calls. We're not having to call people, chase them down, and deal with the excuses or anything else. This is what the servicer is doing for us. You know, and a lot of times we don't even know what's going on. So they're doing it for us. So anyway, I just wanted to hit on that important point for the new folks.
Absolutely. 45 days delinquency is a benchmark. If there's a federal notice that goes out at 45 days of delinquency, if the notice has not been sent in the past 180 days, it's a really strange calculation. So if a loan's been current and hits 45 days for the first time, there's a notice that goes out that says, hey, you're 45 days delinquent. Here's your last 6 months of transactions. What's going on? You don't want to go into foreclosure, so you need to do something.
Right.
Usually the borrower only sees the word foreclosure and they call me, why are you foreclosing on me? And we have to explain the nature of the letter. Right. But once that letter's been sent, it can't be sent again for another 180 days on a new 45-day default. So it's kind of a weird little letter. But so the most a borrower can get is twice a year.
Okay.
But those letters go out once a week. We drop all of our 45-day letters, send them all out. Those are very effective. They're kind of a scarier letter. They definitely have the word foreclosure. They talk about seeking options and opening up that loss mitigation dialogue.
Right.
Once you've hit about 60 days, at this point, if we're not getting a response to outreach, if we can't reach them by phone, we'll send a letter and say, hey, we've been trying to reach you about these. Now you're 2 payments down. You know, give us a call. Let us know what you're doing. Some people just go in the portal, make the payments, which is great for everybody.
Yeah.
If we don't get anything around the 60-day mark, that's about when we're going to start going back to the client. We're going to say, do you want to consider a notice of demand? Notice of demand is basically in most states and under most documents, it's a 30-day notice to cure. They have 30 days to bring the loan 100% current.
Okay.
Of course, loss mitigation is always an option at any of these points, but this does restrict the account. They have to pay in certified funds, so they can't bounce a check on us.
Okay.
And they have to pay everything. We're not going to take a partial payment unless the client has said, hey, if they'll get me half, I'll let them do that with a payment arrangement after. There's all sorts of flexibility. But generally, this starts the clock.
Okay.
If they don't pay by the end of that 30 days, once the loan gets, if it's owner occupied, once the loan gets to 120 days, you can move on to foreclosure. If it's non-owner occupied, definitely an investment property, as soon as that NOD expires, you can move. And you can even up that clock. If you know it's non-owner occupied, the client can call it 35 days and say, I want an NOD sent. Okay. And as long as we're not restricted by having to send the 45-day letter, because that has to go first.
Right.
We could be like, yeah, absolutely. We'll send that right out. Allied does most of their notices of demand in-house. They are generally $100. It is billed to the client at the time of service. It is also assessed to the borrower's account and is fully recoverable.
Sure, I understand.
Not all legal fees are, so it's important. You could get the $100 back. There are
I want to highlight that's a bargain. Having had to shop around for NODs in states that you don't service, $100 is a bargain. You know, and I know that it's going to be 100% compliant because this is your business and this is how you do this. So I know that everything's going to be tight and exactly what we need.
And, you know, our NODs are regularly vetted by our local attorneys. We recently made a change to our Texas NOD to be a little stronger, a little tighter.
So what do you all do in terms of monitoring the escrow and the insurance and all that we don't have to worry about?
So for all loans that are in first position or are wraps with true escrow where Allied's administering the escrow, part of our, well, most of our setup fee goes towards the acquisition of the tax contract. And
Okay.
our vendor ensures that we get the bills on all of our escrow deals so that we can pay them at the point of greatest discount to the borrower, or at least timely if there's no discount
Okay.
offered. And then for our non-escrowed loans, we receive all the notices of delinquency. So when a jurisdiction releases their delinquency information to our vendor sends us a report. We start getting out those delinquency notices. If it's critical delinquency, if we're looking at a potential tax sale, if they're already a full year delinquent, we generally don't get too excited about a single installment. We worry more about once they're a full tax cycle delinquent. Then we're going to start bringing the client in and say, how do you want to move forward with this? Do you
Right.
want to pay the taxes? And then we'll add it back and accrue any interest that you may be due for the payment of those. Do you want to pay them, send the NOD? Where do we want to go? So we'll start talking options.
Okay.
But mostly we just send the delinquency notices and eventually our non-escrow borrowers pay. So many of them, again, tax refund season, this is when they pay their taxes every year.
Sure.
And we
Sure.
know that's what they're going to do.
Mhm.
So sometimes we won't get terribly excited about a delinquency because we'll look and we'll see, oh, well, this happened every year. And every year they pay it and they send us a receipt in February, March when they got their return.
Okay.
But definitely we monitor that. Insurance, the same thing. We have a vendor. All first place liens are covered under our blanket policy. If the borrower fails to provide acceptable proof of insurance, and acceptable means they have to list Allied as the loss payee. It has to be in an amount equal to the replacement value or the unpaid principal balance, whichever is less.
Okay.
Or mobile homes are a special thing. They can be a lot lower just because mobile homes have a lot less
Yeah.
value. But as long as they provide that acceptable proof of insurance, everything's great. And we just monitor to make sure that they don't have any lapses or an actual termination of the policy.
Okay.
If they do, our vendor sends the required federal notices because there's a letter cycle that must occur before any premiums can be assessed under federal law. And then they start hitting us. We get the bill for the premium and we'll hit the borrower's escrow account, or we'll be accruing the fees as those premiums increase. And we constantly talk to borrowers about how lender-placed insurance is not the right answer for them. It's cheap, but it doesn't cover much. The deductible is high.
It doesn't
Really
protect
trying
them.
to educate them.
Yeah. It doesn't protect their personal interests. It's protecting me as the lender.
It really doesn't. In the short run, there are some things that it will cover and great. And worst case, and we see this unfortunately quite a bit, if there's a total loss, it'll pay off their loan.
Mm-hmm.
But you've lost all your belongings, all your equity, everything, and there's no coverage for that.
Right.
So
I've seen folks talk about the pitfalls of self-servicing in terms of, having your name and address out there, your phone number on deeds, and borrowers contacting the lender directly and all that, maybe even showing up at your door. What can you recommend, or what's your best practice as far as having contact information out there? How does Allied protect me from people kind of contacting me because they're behind and they want to they have bad intentions, let's say?
So technically under federal law, there is a letter that has to go out when you buy a note. The old seller has to send a letter that gives your name and address and phone number. Because of that and a variety of other issues, I recommend that every single investor in this type of cash flow, don't buy in your personal name. Have an LLC. I know it's annoying to pay for it every year, but it's worth it. Have your LLC in place. Use a PO box or a mailboxes, etc. address.
Okay.
Have a separate. You can get a free toll-free number or a mass toll-free number on the internet. They're not expensive.
Google Voice.
It will push through to your phone, but they don't see your phone number. Get yourself your own toll-free number.
Because it's a federal requirement to have that available, right?
They say toll-free, but nowadays nobody pays for phone calls. So it's
we're dating ourselves. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Legally, I can't not tell a borrower your company name and phone number and address. Legally, I have to disclose that.
Okay.
So that means if you're not creating those protective walls, you're going to have borrowers calling you because I can't not give them the phone number because they're mad because I'm like, you're being foreclosed on because of this. Well, I want to talk to my lender, and we can't deny them that option.
Right.
You can always turn them right back to us, which is great. Please do, tell them, I'm sorry, Allied handles this for me. You're going to have to call them.
Right.
But have that PO box, have that LLC, have that toll-free number that is not your own number. The other things that you can do are contract for deeds. When you buy those, there's a deed that gets recorded, sometimes an assignment. Again, have your LLC. Use either Allied's PO box, which on a contract for deed is a big deal because then we get all the tax bills, municipal violations, and any other notices.
I know what you're talking about.
And let me tell you, if you're selling a partial on a contract for deed and you've got a passive investor, you don't want them getting those notices.
Why is that water bill showing up every month?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Send it directly to Allied. So you can use our PO box. We're all about that. Or have your own PO box and be prepared to forward those things to Allied timely.
Fantastic.
Never put your name and address in a public record document. That is my advice.
That's fantastic.
Allied's PO box can be used at any time for any loan we service.
This particular part right here is gold because what you have is a back office looking over your shoulder, making sure that they get in front of any problems before they become a big problem. And that's absolutely incredible. Melissa, this has been incredible. We've got a lot of people with rental backgrounds, and if they're doing it right, they have property managers and they're paying 10% of their monthly rental, and they don't even think anything about spending a couple $100s a month for this kind of service. I would pay a couple $100s a month for the service that you provide just to keep me out of trouble, but that's not the case. What do you charge me for my performing notes?
So a performing note is if it's a first lien, it's a $100 one-time setup fee. If it's a junior or a not true escrow wrap loan, it will be $50.
Okay.
And then after that, performing notes are $18.50 a month, plus we receive half of any paid late charges.
So less than $20. You do this all for me.
For a perfectly performing note, yes, it's going to be $18.50 a month through the life of the loan.
Well, here's what you could do. You could buy a 20-year note, Brian. You could turn around and take one of your clients that you ever have any friends or family or people that that you go to church with or school, with their parents and all that stuff, the parent of the kids, and they're all saying, hey, Brian, when you get in one of those deals and you need a partner, let me know. Have you ever been solicited about that?
Oh, yeah. As a realtor, we call it our database. It's kind of the lifeblood of our business.
All right. So you call one of those people and you turn around and you take a self-directed retirement account and you fund $100,000 and you buy that 20-year note. And let's just say for easy conversation purposes, you're going to get $1,000 a month. Mm-hmm. Okay. You turn around and sell 10 years of that note. Okay. And you sell that for, let's just say, in the high 90s. You paid $100. Mm-hmm. You sell the first 10 years for, call it $98,000.
Okay.
You've recouped $98,000 of your $100,000 investment. How much money do you have invested to own the back half of that note?
So $2,000 for the last 10 years?
$2,000 gets you 10, and this is called a partial, and this is a technique that we've really perfected. And people say, that's magic math. And I'm like, no, it's just math you didn't know. It is magic if you don't know it.
Okay, we got to drill down deeper on this. This is okay. Like I'm 5 again. Okay. So you're selling the first 10 years.
Yeah.
So what does my cash flow position look like for the first 10 years? Do I get any?
You sold it.
Okay, so I sold it.
So that's a wealth growing strategy. That's not a cash flow strategy.
Right.
So you may not do that on every deal you buy, but let me tell you something. You got those kids, take a Coverdell educational account and do that strategy and take one note that would pay for 2 years of your kid's college.
Right.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm. Really? And so if you diversify, right? You can diversify and you can mix your bag a little bit between present cash flow and future cash flow. And I'm sure this where the financial modeling aspect comes in. You could essentially predict your wealth building strategy up front for the next 20 years.
Well, and Brian, to tie it to the example you're showing before about rentals and how, I got to hang out for that appreciation. Okay. So what if you could just take $2,000 and say, hey, I'll put in $2,000 now, and then 20 years from now, I'll sell that rental house for $100,000.
Right.
That's basically because you've kept the back end.
Right.
So your back end has value.
Right.
But it's an incredible leverage technique. Yeah.
And we'll, at the end of the show, we're gonna give something so people can kind of see a little class. We'll have a couple hour little class and actually go through step by step and show the math and show, so it's not. I don't want to make it mystical.
Sure.
Right now, we're just talking about what's possible, not all the mechanics.
Sure.
Of how you do it, but we're saying what's possible, and people will come to me all the time and they say, Eddie, you talk about having investable capital, and I do have investable capital. I have 300,000, but I'm not Tom, and I can't go own 20 notes. And I'm like, oh yes, you can.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but once again, they don't know what's possible, and we're simply teaching people. You know why I love realtors? Because realtors are problem solvers. They're fun to teach because they're problem solvers, and they're not scared of real estate. Right. They already know the collateral. And I've said this. I've spoken a lot over many years, right? And I've said this from audiences from Miami to Seattle and everywhere in between. And that is, would you rather be a landlord or the bank?
Well, originally I signed up with Note School because I needed to learn creative financing, because I started where I started. I didn't have a fund to start investing with. So I needed to learn the tips and tricks that he teaches, which are fantastic, and implemented those. And then now that I have built up a rental portfolio, I'm switching to buying notes instead of houses, because it intrigues me that I can be the lien lord and not the landlord. So when something goes wrong with the house, nobody is calling me. If an HVAC unit goes out, I don't have to spend $7,000 to replace it. If somebody's shower is cold that morning, they're not going to call and tell me about it. And then I have to get a plumber in there. So I could go on. And when you're a single woman, it's a great way to go.
Absolutely.
But you don't have the help to go and fix something. If it needs, or if a tree falls, you're not going to go out there with a chainsaw and clean that up. No. Absolutely. I encourage people to take action, and you're going to make mistakes. I could sit here and talk to you about the mistakes I've made too. So I don't want it to sound like, oh, it was so easy peasy. It was not. And I've made some really big and expensive mistakes. You're going to pay for your education one way or the other.
You jumped right in, and that's the big thing. And that's probably what you encourage people to do.
Absolutely. I encourage people to take action, and you're going to make mistakes. I could sit here and talk to you about the mistakes I've made too. So I don't want it to sound like, oh, it was so easy peasy. It was not. And I've made some really big and expensive mistakes. You're going to pay for your education one way or the other.
Absolutely. So mistakes are what create experience, Can you kind of point to an aha moment or something that clicked with you guys when it came to what Brett was talking about with notes? Was there something that appealed to you? You said, yeah, we got to look into this a little bit more.
Oh, 100%. And you know what it was? It was kind of a two-phase deal. First of all, in multifamily real estate, the past couple years have been extremely interesting from the perspective of interest rates, property taxes, insurance, various other, profit and loss line items. To just give you an example, 2 years ago, we were buying insurance for $300-400 per unit per year. And that figure on our renewals this past year was north of $1,000 per unit. And the hurricanes, the freeze, everything's catching up with the insurance industry. But what that equates to is essentially, I can't charge the apartment resident an extra $600 a month in 1 year. So that just equates to the tightening of yields going to the investor. That's precisely what that means. And so for Emily and I, multifamily real estate at this stage is our full-time job. It's how we make a living. It's how we put food on the table. And we saw our cash flows decline. I mean, we're substantially, right? If I had, let's say I had 8 real estate investments in multifamily, and each one was putting off maybe anywhere from 10 to 12% annualized cash flow. Well, that number for 4 of the properties or 5 of the properties was 0. And for the remaining properties was like 2 to 3%. Yeah. I think as we pivoted into notes, and specifically working with Note School, really it solved in the immediate, it solved an issue, right? Mm-hmm. It basically said, hey, you could take these remaining funds that you've got from a couple property sales, and instead of, stashing that away in some equity investment or, a piece of real estate, you could actually make a significant amount of cash flow. And that was the introduction when we heard Brett and Eddie speak. And so that's where the light bulb went off, and we said, oh, wow. So, I was making this much per month. Now it's this, but it could, expand again based on this investment vehicle. Mm-hmm. So that was just extremely eye-opening. And I'd say that probably the second phase of that evolution was when we actually got into it and started making these investments. One thing became very clear to me. When I make real estate investments, I don't care if it's single family, I don't care what it is. There's always a period of time where you've put the investment in the oven to bake, and you're kind of watching it and seeing how it's going, right? But you're not necessarily making any money off of it yet. And for multifamily, that's been really the name of the game the last couple of years. Like, hey, I'm going to give you $100,000, and based on the projections, the economy, I think that'll turn into 150, maybe 200 in 3 to 5 years. But with notes, what was very amazing, again, it's the second evolution after getting into it, is you get darn near half your principal investment back in just a number of years. And it's like, okay, well, now I can actually go do something else with that money. Whereas the real estate investments I've made, granted, I'm sure they're all going to work out, but I haven't seen, in some of those projects, I haven't seen a dime yet. And it's been a couple of years. Notes are extremely passive. I mean, to your point, obviously, the upfront work's important, and it's worth the time and effort to put that in to make sure what you're buying is you're getting, your money's worth. But after it's cash flowing, I mean, it's very passive. I think now our big thing is, hey, if it's part of your portfolio, it doesn't have to be 100%, but it should be a part of it. And that's really when people ask me about notes, and usually they phrase it like this: what do you think about notes? I say, well, you know what? For us, it came at the right time. And for you, investor, or for, it may not be 100% of your portfolio, but it should be a part of it. It should be a percentage of it based on what I've experienced. Well, when we got into this note business, we read a book by George Antone called The Banker's Code. And one of the biggest takeaways from that book for us was the fact that, and you pointed to this earlier, Tom, if you can prioritize the velocity of your money, in other words, if I've got whatever, $10,000, $20,000, $5,000 sitting in my bank account, if I can actually do something with that and get that principal back quickly, then that actually has a higher rate of return than if it's, well, of course, if it's just sitting there. But I've already proven that it has a higher rate of return than if I put it in, say, a multifamily investment, which I probably won't see for 3 to 5 years.
So,
well, Tom, and I think what you're saying is that we help people, is that, when a borrower goes into default or starts, slowing their pace or whatever, we don't foreclose right away. We do payment options, payment arrangements with them. We're working to help them to stay in their home, because that's really the end goal, is that they get to stay in their home. But if they don't, we can modify the loan. We can do a forbearance and put what they owe on the back end of the loan. So there's so many ways that we can help people stay in their homes, and that is a good thing. But if it has to go to default, then again, we have that safety net till we're still going to profit on that property. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Eddie Speed, owner of Note School and Colonial Funding Group, he asked me to join the Colonial Funding team. So that is the trade desk side of the business. So Note School is strictly the training, and then the Colonial Funding side is where the trade desk at Colonial Fundings, they acquire properties. They do all the due diligence on those notes. Not properties. I keep saying property. They acquire those notes, and then they do all the due diligence on those. And then once it gets through that due diligence portion, then I'm able to sell it to the Note School students. So that gives students access to quality assets. They've already been through the due diligence process. They're pulling broker price opinions so we can determine what the value is. They're pulling the title reports on all of those, so we can make sure that everything is clear. If there's any underlying liens or mortgages on any of those are all cleared off. Taxes are all brought current. So that way we're presenting quality assets to the students to buy, whether they're buying for their own portfolios or, they're brokering those notes to their private investors. So that's what I do, is I help match those notes that are available to sell to the students. Yeah. So I think for me, Tom, is kind of like what you mentioned early on. I wish I'd known this 15 years ago, about notes. Like I say, I dabbled in the rentals. I dabbled in doing the wholesaling business and fix and flips. And here I was working a 60-hour-a-week job trying to do all of that. When I found notes and how easy it was, I could probably have built a much bigger retirement had I been investing in notes because of the returns on those notes. Nearly every one of my notes, except for maybe one or two, they're all double-digit returns consistently. And I didn't have that when I was just staying within the stock market.
So, since I got started in Note School, I knew that out of everything that, we've done, and my wife is somewhat involved. She's seen the journey of obviously door knocking, wholesaling, fix and flips, rentals, and then notes. The thing that she loves the most is notes because it's, for us, the least amount of work and typically the most amount of profit, right? I mean, I know Eddie and a lot of people talk about and say, you can make more money with the pen than you can with the hammer, right? And we were really going out there, spending a lot of time and energy and resources when we're doing fix and flips, rentals, and things of that nature. But notes just made a whole lot of sense. So we've started focusing and shifting to mostly notes. And we even started selling off some of our rentals to owner finance buyers and creating and originating notes. As I like to say now too, the money's in the money, right? Really understanding financial modeling and what you can do with notes. There's just so many things that you can do with notes that I had no clue, right?
Right.
I didn't know that you can get a loan against a note, and come to find out, a lot of banks do it, right?
Right.
A lot of hard money lenders do it, right? They'll lend you, the money, and then they'll take that note as collateral, and to get 60-70% against that note or whatever the case may be, is that you want to get to the point to where money's working for you, right? And that's the main reason I got into notes.
Well, I know that ran kind of long. That's our longest episode ever, but I'm not going to shortcut all the content just to meet some time frame. If you're like me, you'll listen to podcasts while you're exercising or whatever, and put it on pause when you're done and pick up where you left off. But hopefully you caught a theme there, and it's all about putting money to work for you in the most headache-free manner. You heard Adam Roberts talk about prioritizing the velocity of money. He's an experienced multifamily and single-family investor, and it was all about cash flow and return for him and Homero, and great insights from Eddie and a whole host of others. Great time with Melissa, the servicer. So just a whole wealth of content. Hopefully you go back and listen to it again, or you just go to our website and watch the full episode. So that's all I got for you. Hopefully I've piqued your interest enough to go to one of Eddie's free masterclasses. Just go to noclubusa.com. Up on the top in big bold letters says free masterclass. Go ahead and sign up. You don't know what you don't know. I didn't know about this 3 years ago. Sure glad I did. And now I'm just making sure everybody I know does as well. So anyway, be safe tonight on New Year's Eve. We'll see you on the other side. And here's to a prosperous 2025. Y'all take care.